time to shift gears. This is the Man Shift Guide.
Welcome back to the Man Shift Guide, and I'm super excited for this episode because you, as a listener, knows just about as much of this next guest as I do, which is pretty much nothing. We did have like a pre-interview, and I am super excited about this one. We have linked up with a mutual, and after she told me about Dave here, and I was like, man, I relate to a lot of this stuff. Martial artist. I can't say pro, semi-pro. I don't even know, but I know that you are actively engaged in fights. You've also had experience with weight loss. You've had experience with trying to kind of find purpose and direction in life. And there's all of these things that I feel like wrap up to the message that we're trying to portray here on the Man Shift Guide. So my first question for you, Dave, is just kind of just start it off, introduce ourselves, how we got to where we are today, and we'll just kind of go on this journey together.
Awesome. Outstanding. First off, I just want to say what an honor it is to be on your show, man. As we kind of talked in the preamble here, this is my first time on the other side of this. So I'm usually in the hot seat or in the host seat. So again, grateful. Thank you for coming on. For those, obviously, most of your listenership might not know who I am. I'm Dave Ludberg, fought under the name of Dave Lundy the Savage Ludberg, amateur MMA circuit out there in Wyoming. Now I grapple under the Isanti Savage. I did move back here to Minnesota to help family and stuff. I've got 4.5 years of mixed martial arts experience. Currently a 4-stripe blue belt in jiu-jitsu. And just kind of, yeah, like you said, up until a few years ago, really kind of bounced around and didn't have a lot of purpose. But I feel like together the message will be spread and maybe help somebody along the way.
Yeah. So let's dive into that. So what was the inspiration for you to want to do martial arts and become amateur fighter in that realm?
So I'm very awesome that you asked that question. I was really hoping you were going to lead off with that one. So a local cop in Cody where I was living, I'd known him since I moved up, and I'm not going to name him right now because that's going to come later.
Okay.
Had been kind of dropping hints about jiu-jitsu and stuff for probably a solid 1.5 years when I'd see him in person with interactions and on Facebook dropping me stuff all the time. And I had some interest. I was already, weightlifting and stuff. And I remember it got into a really dark place, a really, really dark time in my head. I thought the world was falling apart around me, and it really wasn't, except for one thing. But I'm sure you know how it is, man. Like you feel like the weight of the world is just crashing down on you, and you've got nowhere to turn. And one thing sent me over, and I was on my way out of town to go to finish something. You know what I mean? I don't want to get the show flagged, but and my coach happened to be sitting there, and not sitting there, but at the gym putting in mats and stuff. I went in and talked to him, and just kind of vented for a little bit. And I think he picked up the vibe and basically told me like, "Hey, be here Monday afternoon at 6:30, shorts and a t-shirt." And I think originally he had said the first week is free or whatever, and it took all of like 3 minutes in that gym for me to forget everything that was bothering me. And it was like a new purpose had been found, at least between, because I had just had a really good day at work, and then I walk in there and just absolutely just fell in love with jiu-jitsu. And that was the first class, and absolutely life-changing. And I credit that for being able to sit here and have a conversation with you today. So
with that being said, were you always like in the athletic side of things? Was that always something that you were like into? Like, were you a sports guy? Were you not really a sports guy? Like, how were you sitting at that time? Like,
So at that point in my life, all I was doing was playing like drop-in hockey on Sundays. But growing up, I was a three-sport athlete. I played football, hockey, and baseball here in Minnesota. Um, Played a little JUCO ball back in the day, and then town ball. So I've always been involved with athletics.
Mhm.
But to that point in my life, like prior to what we're talking about now, I was pretty heavy and lazy, and watched sports and was very interested in sports. Watched a lot of UFC and boxing and stuff, and yeah, so I've always kind of had an athletic mindset.
Mhm.
And when I was younger, a very good athlete, not great by any means, but good.
Sure.
And yeah, so it took a while to get it back, but it eventually started to come back and things progressed. So
Yeah. And talking about the mindset that you were, and this kind of brings up an interest that I have for like maybe a future topic, but like Wyoming in general has a really high rate of just men in general who are struggling and a lot of like, I guess, unaliving, if you will. Like some of the highest rates in the country are in Wyoming, and more so for the fact that is the smallest population. So of course the numbers are gonna be like, because there isn't a lot of people that live in here. But regardless of all of those kinds of things, like you see a lot of people that are struggling with that. And that's not really like the conversation that I want to go in, but that kind of brings back in the mind that I think that's something that might be wanted to talk about in the future. But like, so at this time, what age range are we talking? Are we like, are we in our 20s? Are we in our 30s? Like when
no, I was when I started my jujitsu journey, I was 37 years old.
37. So, okay. So that being my age now and thinking like 37, that's like when a lot of these guys retire is like late
Right.
30s, 40 years old. So like the age being something of like an inhibitor for a lot of people for going out there and wanting to do things that they want to do because they feel like they're too old or they feel like, they're not going to be able to compete um with their peers. But what would you say to that? Like to somebody who is like, I'm 40 years old, I want to do this, but I'm not going to be any good at it, so why even try?
Right. So there's two sides to the to the jujitsu aspect of it for me in my mind, anyways. Right. There's the hobbyist, the guy that comes in, he's just looking to get in shape, or girl
Mhm.
that's just coming in to get in shape, whatever. And then there's the guys and gals that are competitively driven, right?
Right.
And basically, and I hear it a lot because people find out how old I am at tournaments or competitions or super fights or whatever, and they're like, "Dang, man, and you're still going?" Well, yeah, I didn't start till I was 37. Well, I've wanted to, but and one of the biggest factors is age. And
Mhm.
that's I remind them like I'm 42 years old and I train with 20, from 17, 18-year-old kids up to I mean the oldest guys I train with are a little bit older than me, but they're still very good. Um, you know, but the prime of their life kids is what I'm around or guys is what I'm around every day of the week, right?
Sure.
So I encourage everybody that I talk to, like, find a gym, not necessarily the gym that I train at because it might be, unfeasible, too far away for you, not worth the travel, but find a gym close to you and try it,
Mhm.
right? And you might find that age really isn't a factor. If you're in somewhat okay shape, you'll be fine.
Sure. And
Check the ego a little bit at the door. Remember that a lot of these guys that you're going to be coming into are young scrappers,
mhm.
high school collegiate wrestlers, guys that have been training since they're 4 or 5 years old. You're going to get tore up a little bit, but at the end of the day, you're you're going to thank yourself for it 4 or 5 months down the road.
Yeah. And we talked about earlier saying that you're kind of like you were overweight and you kind of like you started this with a new purpose. So let's kind of go down like the weight loss direction real quick. We did have um my first episode, we kind of talked to my fitness trainer who was becoming a professional bodybuilder, but he used to be a former fat guy who started off at like 307 pounds and then he's now probably getting close to that again, but it's muscle. But like I myself, who's not really wanting to train to be, a professional bodybuilder or anything like that, and like you're kind of more training to be an athlete, which is something more that I'm more inclined to doing. So like, how was that for you to be diving into the weight loss and also being a little bit older as well too?
So yeah, so that the first part of this journey started shortly after my daughter was born. I thought I was having a heart attack and didn't. And I made a promise to her. She had to have been only like 4 months old, man. That daddy was going to be around for graduation. And that next day I went into work and I talked to one of my managers and basically was like, hey, man, is the gym open today? Is somebody going to be down there? Whatever. I went and signed up and him and I got after it that night after work. And that's another thing, right? That people, they know, but they don't know, right? The first like 90 days is just, it's tough. It's hard, especially when you haven't done it for a while. And then now all of a sudden I'm in the gym 5, 6 days a week. I'm running on a treadmill. I'm trying to do push-ups. I'm trying to lift weights. I'm trying to do things that my body hasn't done and isn't used to doing in a long time. It's tough, but you start seeing results and you get those endorphins. You get that endorphin kick, right? And it's like, I can do this. And then it comes off. But the biggest struggle for me was the diet. Man, I love food. And I still love food to this day, man. Like kind of in the off season, which for me is like a month or two at a time, I eat whatever I want. I kind of go out and I just kind of eat, right? But then you rein it back in. But the hardest part for me was finding the discipline to cut out fast food, to cut out soda, to not eat fatty, greasy stuff all the time, right? And dial it in to like beef, just beef, chicken, pork, healthier food, veggies, and stuff like that. And monitoring how much you eat while you're working out and kind of monitoring that your calorie intake throughout the day too. Like I'm eating X amount of calories, but I'm only burning off this many, even going to the gym, right? So then you start to dial that in and get all that figured out. But definitely the first like 90 days was very tough. Um, but again, I had purpose to be there, so it made it a little bit easier, but it was still tough. Um, just grinding every day, and days that you don't see the results that like you get through a week. Let's say you lost 5 to 6 pounds in a week or so or whatever, but the next week you only lose 2. It's discouraging. So you gotta take the little things when you're first starting out, and obviously the body doesn't respond the way that you think it would, right? You're still super sore and you're super beat up. Like, man, I could be on the couch right now, sitting watching Beavis and Butthead eating cheesy poofs, but instead I'm in here grinding.
Yeah, for sure. Like I know for me, like and you talked about specifically the 90 days, like the pushing yourself and I mentioned this before, like there's like kind of like the a lot of people will give up before they hit that part where it's like, okay, now everything is working. Like it's kind of like the build up of something, kind of like you plant a seed and of a tree and the roots grow first and you don't see the tree until a couple years later, right? Like all of this stuff is happening and then all of a sudden like boom, the tree just like sprouts up and then it's like it's a tree. But like there's all of that work and all of those things that you have to learn before you see the big results. And it's as much as a mental game as it is like a physical game. Because like you talk about wanting to sit on the couch and doing all these things that your brain has been used to doing for so long. And all of a sudden you're just like throwing it into like this new like way of life that it doesn't necessarily want to do because it wants to be lazy. It wants to do all of these things. And you kind of talk about like people will give up like right before that tree starts sprouting. And I tell that to my daughter all the time. Like we give up right before something magical happens. And she always asks me for help. And I'm like, well, try again one more time and I'll come help you. And then usually when she tries it one more time on her own is when she like, oh, okay, I did it. Like, and that's like opening something or like whatever it is a 7-year-old needs to do.
Well, it's human nature now, right? Like we we've been conditioned for so long now that it's okay to quit. It's okay to be mediocre. It's okay just to float through life, right? So you're really when you start doing things and standing out on your own or whatever, and you find your purpose, you're looking around, and until that habit is formed, right? You're looking around and you're like, well, all these people that I hang out with are out drinking beer all night, eating whatever they want. They're on the couch with their girlfriend after work. They're in their warm, fuzzy bed at 4:30 in the morning or whatever. And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, dang, I should be doing that, right? It's easy to give up. It's easy to quit, right? And that in itself is a habit that I found looking back in my life. Like it just got easier and easier to quit. Like life gets tough. Well, this is really hard, so I'm gonna hit the brakes.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another thing. You got to get over. I find that once you get over that, I want to quit. Like you just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually when you're ready to quit, like right before that is when something magical happens.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And a couple times throughout that initial part of this journey for me, it was a massive, like not paying attention to scale anymore and just going through the motions, as Jocko would say. Didn't really want to be there. Didn't really feel like doing it, but I went anyways and just went through the motions. You go through a couple of weeks of that, you're starting to feel good again. You step on the scale as you're about ready to say, I'm done. I'm not seeing the results I want. And you step on a scale and you're down 20 pounds or whatever. And it's like, whoa, okay. And now you're fired back up again. So I guess long story short, take the little victories and turn them into something big.
Sure. Yeah. And also in my life, I've noticed after doing going through the motions for a long time and having given up and stuff, and then going back to old habits and being like, oh man, I don't feel so good anymore. And you kind of learn that, like, it is true that they say like the pain of discipline is better than, the pain of not being disciplined. Because
1,000%.
like I was like, I hate going to gym, I hate doing these things, but I felt really good. And then you go off and you do the stuff that you think make you feel good, and it's kind of does sometimes, but then you're like, oh man, I'm not feeling so good anymore. Like, and there and you there really is a big difference between the two. So, it's like they say, choose your hard, right? Like which hard do you wanna deal with? Um, so like when you started doing this going into jujitsu and doing the weight loss thing, and you're dedicating yourself to your 4-month-old kid at the time, like was it like an all in all at once? Or were you like slowly doing the things, or if that makes sense to you?
Yep. So again, at the beginning of the journey, like I have never been a dip my toe in the water and test it out type of human being. That's just never been my speed, right? So yeah, when I decided to start working out and getting into better shape, it was a head first dive in. Like I'm doing this. Like my finance manager at the dealership I worked at the time was literally writing me diet plans and walking me through and working out with me right alongside with me every night or every morning whenever we went. And yeah, I dove all the way in on it because I was liking the way I felt, and I started liking the way I looked again. So I sold out to that process.
Then another thing you mentioned is you had help. You weren't doing this by yourself. You had people that were supporting you. You had the coaches, you had the friends, you had the right people at the right time to really help you form this. And for you listener who is hopefully has been with us for a couple of episodes now, we talk about that a lot, is your support system and having that solid support system. And a lot of us men like to do the thing by ourselves. And sometimes that's successful, but more times than not, you need a little bit of help. And as you said, check your ego. Um, there are people who have been in your shoes before you and that could offer help. So take it. Like,
Exactly, the lone wolf mentality that we as men develop, um, really, and it's generational, right? We don't talk about our feelings. We do things on our own because we're men. That's what we're supposed to do, right? Wrong. 1,000% wrong. Like, yes, there are times that you need to be comfortable with being by yourself, right? But you need to turn to your people, accountability buddies, if you're in the military, battle buddies, your circle of influence, your circle of friends, and people that care about you more than just like, hey, you're my friend, but hey, man, I'd love to help you, but I got something else going on. No, I'm talking about the dudes that you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning, say, hey, dude, listen, I'm having some screwy thoughts right now. Those same cats are the dudes that you need to be talking to when you feel like quitting or when something doesn't feel right or whatever. You need to call and be like, hey, man, listen, I don't feel like doing this today. And if that's your buddy, if that's your brother, whatever, that guy's going to be like, hey, dude, I'm on my way to the house right now. We're going to go do this together. Right. You need to be able to lean on people. And as men, we need to be able to lean on each other to get anywhere. And there's zero shot. There are two factors in this, and I'm not going to get into any big religious rants here, I promise. But there are two very big factors in why I am who I am today. One is our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And two are the men that have been around me since I started this journey, and now I'm continuing on this journey in a new place, right? And that goes back to Jesus and to my faith, right? God has put these men in my life and shown me that they can be trusted, to lean on them for guidance, and they're there, right? So whatever you believe in, whether it's, you get what I'm saying there, whatever you believe in, God's putting these people in your life for a reason. Use them.
So what do you say to somebody who says, like, this is good and all, but like I don't have those people in my life? Because you see a lot of people complaining about being lonely and not being able to reach out or not having that support system, which is another thing in itself because like, there are people out there who do have those people in their lives, but there's a lot of people who don't. So like, in your opinion, like how do we find these people?
Perfect question. Perfect question right there. You're already at the gym, right? Go up and talk to people. Go up and talk to men when you're lifting, like in between sets. Maybe if you see somebody looking, go up and talk to them. Introduce yourself. You got to kind of, sometimes you got to be extroverted when you want to be introverted, if that makes sense, right? Um, or if you're a person of faith, pray. Like, hey, listen, I need some strong people in my life right now to get me through this. And those people that you find in those situations aren't just summer friends, right? Sometimes you're friends, sometimes they're not. Those are your lifelong people. Those people will be with you forever, and they're tough to find. But when you find them, you hold on to them, right? You got to put yourself out there a little bit. And the other part of it too is what you're putting out, right? So if you're out in public or you're at the gym or whatever, and you're ho hum and you're putting off really negative vibes, nobody's going to want to come around you, and you are going to be maybe stuck being a lone wolf, right? But if you try to be positive and upbeat and friendly with people, you'll find that it's given back to you 1,000-fold, and then you find the people that you need.
Love it. Um, so to wrap things up, before we do our last question, we talked about finding purpose. We've talked about finding people, your purpose, and for those of us who are inclined to define your faith. And I think that those three key things, I think, is the blueprint of really having a better life. And it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, whatever age range you are. I think that can't go wrong with those things, those three things. So, um, and now as I usually go for a wrapping up in our 10 minutes or less question, like who is it that you admire? Who is the man that you want to shout out?
Perfect. And I'm going to apologize now if I get a little misty because there's two. One of them's no longer with us, and it's my grandfather.
Sure.
He's up in heaven looking down right now, smiling. That man was the exemplary. I can't use big words, but he was a shining example of what it meant to live for Jesus. And he helped raise me, and he was always there for me. And the one that I'm going to talk about here is still alive, and I held off on it earlier in the show. Is Jason Potter. Um, if it wasn't for God putting him where He put him at the right time, I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you. I would have never fell in love with combat sports the way that I have. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be who I am here without him. He's one of the nicest, kindest men that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting in my entire life. Him and his family will literally give you shirts off their back. I turned to him so much early on when I was struggling and stumbling and still kind of acting like an idiot. And he was always there to pick me up. And he never lied to me. He never sugarcoated anything. And this is one of the things that I respect about him. And I try to be that way now in my life, not only for his faith, but for his just straightforward honesty. Hey, man, I'm struggling. This is why I'm struggling. And it's just, hey, Lundy, dude, what are you doing? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Well, not really. Well, then that's why you're struggling. Pull your head out and let's get back after it. Right. So, yeah, to this day, somebody that if I have a question or need something, I can lean on them. And then one more, and I'm sorry, I know 10 minutes or less, but my current coach at Isani Grappling Club, Chris Hansman, and for welcoming me into that gym and open arms, right? And he's another dude that, back to earlier conversation, right? I can talk to him anytime about anything, and he's a godsend. And again, to wrap up my side of this, guys out there listening to this, man, find your people and hold on to them, and set your goals, write them down, because that's commitment. That's the first commitment. You find these people in your life, good things are going to happen. I've been in places and done things in the last 4.5 years that I never thought I would do, ever. I fought in a cage. I've been on competition mats kind of across the country, win, lose, whatever. I've inspired people, and that's my whole mission right now in life, other than making money and doing my job to provide, right, is to inspire people and to get people off the couch, as I say, and make a change in your life.
Love it, man. If somebody would be inclined to reach out to you, how can we find you?
So you can find me on Facebook, just David Ludberg. You can find me on Instagram. That is at Lundy the Savage MMA. Pretty easy to find. And that's it. That's really the only socials that I use.
Awesome.
Yeah, guys, feel free to reach out. Reference the podcast so I know where it's coming from, and I'll do everything in my power to help you out. I wouldn't be where I am today without people helping me. So I'm paying it forward. I'm always available to help people. If I don't respond right away, I'll get to you.
Awesome. Fantastic, man. And would love to follow up on you 6 months from now, a year from now, see where you are. Really appreciate the words that you've had. In the meantime, uh, doing this new thing, please drop a comment, give us a rating on Spotify, on YouTube. We really want to be able to promote this podcast more. And I love the listens that you have, but we need that engagement. That engagement is key. And I don't want to be that person, but you kind of have to play the game. That's part of the game of this, this whole social media podcasting world. But in the meantime, Dave, I appreciate you. Again, would love to have you come on later. And this has been the Man Shift Guide, and we will see you on the next one.